Okay, guys, so welcome to my Fallout 4 review. Uh, so, this is my survival mode game that I started my best start in survival mode videos series with, and I haven't gone on and done anything else. I just came up the path here to Sanctuary Hills so we could have a little time alone to talk about the game. The Far Harbor DLC is launching today, and I figured that now would be a good time as any to talk about maybe some of the things that, or my feelings about the main game, now that they're bringing out the big DLCs and stuff like that, and maybe talk a little bit about why I'm not so interested in that stuff and waiting on it, essentially. But we'll get into all that. Before I start, I just want to mention that everything that I'm going to talk about here is my opinion. If you like this game for what it is, how it is, the way it is, just fine, then that's just fine. You know, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that I felt that left me maybe a little bit disappointed when I played the game. So, I guess the first thing that I'll talk about, the first major thing that disappointed me was actually the storyline. You start out up in the vault, and you come down here into Sanctuary, and you have, man, what the hell is this iBot? Get the hell away, man. You start off the game on an epic, like, oh my god, they've killed my significant other and kidnapped, like, Dingo ate my baby. They like kidnap your baby and kill your wife or husband at the beginning of the game, and then you come out on a journey to come and rescue them, and it kind of immediately gets sidetracked with nonsensical busy work that, like, nobody would do in a real life situation if their baby had been kidnapped. It's kind of like the way the story goes is moderately interesting after that, but it's like, you know, your baby gets kidnapped and you're almost immediately thrust into, like, here's somebody else that has a problem, like Preston, you need to go and rescue Preston and all of the people that are down in Concord so you can bring them here to start up Sanctuary Hills. And it's like, why am I even doing that? Why did you start the game out with me, you know what I mean, trying to, like, put such a high motivation in me and then immediately... Oh, I'm probably gonna die because this is survival mode, I forgot. Should have thought about that. Yeah. I came to Sanctuary Hills to get away from stuff that was talking, so, like, really game. But yeah, so then, and then, like, everything else that you do after that point is also busy work that has nothing to do with rescuing your children or your kid, and, like, it just loses that momentum, and it's kind of like, and then it never really touches upon it again. Like, you know, other characters that you meet will, like, reference it or ask you about it in passing, but don't really give a shit. They just, like, want you to do whatever particular thing they want you to do is, whatever was written into the storyline, and it's kind of like, it makes it hard to care about those characters, and it makes it hard to care about what I'm doing. Like, it's kind of like what am I doing here? Am I just building settlements, getting companions for some odd reason that I can't explain? And, like, yeah, there's just... You guys will know, because you guys have probably played the game, but it's like everything seems very disjointed. There's no sort of, like, overarching, or at least the stuff that is overarching isn't really all that interesting or well put together, in my humble opinion. Because, like, what you're really looking at, like, I don't know what there was in their minds when they were deciding to make this, something in my mind is telling me that, like, they decided that while they could go and do a bunch of stuff that's like, references other material, references pop culture, references like, stuff that's relevant right now in any way, shape, or form, they were like, let's go and create our own thing. And that's what they did. And that's fine. But is what they created really all that great? I think that's like, up to the eyes of the beholder to some degree. Because I think you can, if I had to say, like, the major takeaways that I had from this game, it's kind of like, it's a little bit based on the Terminator with some of the synth storyline, and then maybe a little bit based on the Underground Railroad with the railroad, right? But even that comes across as being a little bit bizarre, because it's kind of like, man, the Underground Railroad, like the real Underground Railroad, used to rescue slaves, like, from, like, indentured servitude and potential death situations, right? Whereas, like, here it's kind of like a touchy-feely, oh, let's rescue the robots because reasons. Even though it's like, man, if you were in the Terminator, and, like, that was the whole point of the Terminator, is that, like, they made robots that you couldn't tell were different from humans, and they would come in and kill everybody, right? So they would try to pretend to be like the rest of us. And it's kind of like, that's completely gone in this game for some sort of, like, oh, feel good, let's rescue all of the robots who don't realize they're not people, and then let's erase their minds so that they don't know that they're robots they'll just think that they're people now. And it's like, what is that even, what am I even supposed to take away from that? Like, it's kind of like, that doesn't, it barely makes any sense, and I don't know if it's supposed to have some kind of, like, deeper meaning or message, or I'm supposed to feel something particular about it, but it's like, it just felt like, I don't know, pandering for emotion, pandering for some sort of response. They want you to feel something about these poor old robots that can't do anything for themselves except the rest of them are killing everything. Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And it's kind of like, if you are gonna pull from some stuff, it's like, why not? Like, you have such an awesome opportunity to pull from, like, way, way, way more. And it's like, and I just don't see anything that even, like, the rest of the game is just the world that they wanted to create. And I just don't think it's all that good, because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, like, this was such an opportunity to do something like, my Idiocracy. That's one I've talked about a lot, right? Where in the movie Idiocracy, the character participates in a cryogenic experiment and wakes up 1,000 years in the future, or 5,000, I can't remember how long it is, but wakes up in the future, and it's so far in the future that it's like everything that's a problem right now has, like, multiplied exponentially and become even more compounded problems. So the number of stupid people that we have today has multiplied exponentially to the point where now stupid people just completely, that's all there is, that's all that's left. You know what I mean? Everybody walks around, wearing advertisements on their clothing, and they're idiots, And it was a brilliant movie, and there was lots of stuff, lots of material that you could take, where, like, you come out of the vault here, in an unknown amount of time in the future, and things aren't the way that you expect them to be. I would say, if anything, this game is all about, like, let's just hit the expectations of what people think there's going to be, but let's not do anything to go really far beyond that. And it's kind of like, that's disappointing to me. It's kind of like, I don't want to play a game that, like, it goes down the checklist and just hits all the notes of, like, here's what people were expecting. It's like, no, I want to be surprised. I want to be like amazed and impressed and like have experiences that I didn't think I was going to have or wasn't even thinking about or didn't even know existed. You know what I mean? And I know that that's like a tall order to ask for, but it's also like there's so much material that you could take from. Another example would be Total Recall, another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, along with Terminator, where it's like Total Recall, he goes and has his memories wiped. Or no, not wiped, sorry. He goes and has a sort of virtual reality vacation where he thinks that he's a secret agent, and then it kind of blurs the line between, like, is he still in the virtual reality holiday, or is this the real thing? Like, he can't tell because of the way that it's done, and you can't tell by the end of the movie. That's the kind of cliffhanger note it ends on, or that they play around with throughout the movie, is that you don't know, is he actually dreaming all this, that he's having this secret agent type lifestyle, or is this actually like the situation that he's in? And it's once again like you come across like the memory den, and they have all this stuff, and it's like perfect opportunity to insert a little bit of like just what's going on, am I really doing this, or am I just dreaming kind of sequence or something like that. And it's like, once again, nothing really happened there. And it's kind of like, there's a lot of other movies that I can think of, a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies actually, which is kind of funny, but like The Running Man, where there's like a sort of battle royale, battle to the death for criminals in the future, and an innocent man is framed and put into the arena, so to speak, and then he has to fight his way through everything and prove his innocence. And you know, it's an over-the-top Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, but once again, like, more interesting than anything that I did in here. You know what I mean? And like, I have a whole list of like stuff that you could have done that would have been better, but like, you know, stuff like War of the Worlds, you know, The Day the Earth Stood Still, like the alien encounter in this game is very lackluster. It's like, it's the same, it's almost exactly the same as the alien encounter in Fallout 3, except in Fallout 3 the alien has crashed and died right next to his spaceship, and you can pick up the gun from him. In this game, the alien has made it 30 feet away and is hiding in a cave, and then you shoot him and take his gun away from him. But that's all it is. It's another crashed ship with slightly more to do, but really nothing to speak of as far as like being entertaining or exciting. Like, maybe for somebody who's never played a Fallout game before, that would be like, oh my gosh, what's this? But it's like, sorry, I have played the previous Fallout games, and yeah, really not that interesting. And like, I do have like, okay, War of the Worlds, or like you know, like the tripod walkers and stuff like that. Like, this is getting into further content, but it's like just lots of opportunities to make new enemy types. But I'll go into that. But just some more movies that would have been interesting to see, like even something like The Rocketeer. That was another one that I kept thinking about when they had the jetpacks here, where it's like, man, if they had a shack somewhere next to like an airfield that had the Rocketeer's jetpack and helmet in it, and like, you know, the leather jacket getup or whatever, like that would be badass. If I could fly around like a superhero, like that would make getting around so much easier. And like, you know, I felt let down by the way the story goes, because even the story that they have where you do eventually find your kidnapped child and follow that out to its conclusion, I just didn't find it that interesting or that compelling by the end of it. It was kind of like even more of the expected, you know what I mean, like, what did you think was going to happen, and not very interesting in what you were able to explore as far as like alternate paths or routes or stuff like that through it. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I felt let down by the story, and I think that there's, like, literally there's any number of movies that you could speak or talk about and be like, you could make this so much cooler with that. Fifth Element is another one that's occurred to me many times. Even Alien, you know, there were plenty of scenes where I was like, man, this would be a perfect scene for a chest burster. You know what I mean? Or something that, you know, like some type of scene where shit just gets completely crazy and you're just like, what the H is going on? You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know what I mean? I kind of feel like they could have done more, and it's interesting, but like, I don't feel like I have any kind of a deeper understanding of, like, Boston or its history. Like maybe I've stuck my toe in. That's the depth that I've reached of my understanding now compared to what I had before. You know, I like just testing the waters. Like nothing. There were no takeaways from the game as far as that. And like, just to talk about, like, I didn't hate everything, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm trying to, like, just be like, oh man, everything sucked completely. It's like, no, there were interesting parts of the game. I did enjoy, like, the Lorenzo with the artifact sequence, but I felt like you could have done more with it. There could have been, like, some sort of crazy battle where, like, he's, like, you know, levitating around the room and, like, throwing books at you and whatever, you know, like I know you can imagine what that scene would look like in your head, and it's kind of like it never went quite to that degree. You know what I mean? Like, the game never goes there anywhere that you go. Like, any of the boss fight type stuff, it's kind of, you know, mediocre, what you expect. You know, here's another Mirelurk Queen, or another group of raiders, you know? So it's kind of, I don't know, you know? I did like the sequence with the USS Constitution and Ironsides. I thought that was well done. And then the sequence with the Silver Shroud. I think those are the top 3 things, in my opinion, of what I've played of the game. I know that there's stuff out there that I haven't played, guys, so, like, I know somebody out there can be like, well, you only got to this level and you only did this much, and it's like, yeah, but if the game's not going to grab me by that level and I only did that much and I got bored of it, then it pretty much speaks everything that I need to know about the game. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, it's just like, those are the main things that I can remember, you know? And same with, like, your companion missions. Once again, it's kind of like, there were a few standouts, I'm not going to deny. Like, I liked finding Curie in the bottom of the vault. That was cool. Kate is somewhat interesting, but also just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's interesting that you get to go and, you know, watch her get cleaned up by getting the crazy injection machine and everything, but, like, there are other aspects about her character which just did not add up for me. And it's kind of like, for the rest of the characters, I like them. I like Valentine, you know. All of them were okay for what they were, but there was no kind of, like, I don't know, congruity, connectiveness between them at all, or in any way, shape, or form. Or, like, it's almost like each one only cares about themselves and their relationship with you. Like, they don't mind getting it on with you, but do they give a fuck about, you know, what kind of shit you're dealing with? No. Each one of them just wants to talk to you about their particular story. And it feels very weird to me as a player, as well as the fact that it's like, okay, you have this game where you're trying to now, like, build settlements, for one. You're also trying to, like, rescue your kid, right? I would have figured at the very, very least that, like, you could have used the companion characters. Think of it as like assembling the A-team, right? The companion characters are people that are out there in the world that people know can get the job done, or something like that, and you have to go and get everybody together, and once you have them working with you, then you can like maybe assign them to one of your settlements, and they do something there beyond what you were able to do before. Not just give you, hey, you've leveled up your relationship with, you know, X, Y, or Z, and now you get this random perk that you get to carry around with you as a token of the time you've spent with them or whatever. Like it was just like, it's such a shallow use of something that could be so much more ingrained or you know, applied to what you're doing. You know, it could make so much more of a difference, and I just felt like I got to the end of the game and I just didn't give a crap about anybody. It was kind of like, man, you guys all suck. You know what I mean? Like, that was the major takeaway, and I kind of don't like that. So that's one more thing that I was kind of disappointed by. And, like, let me just, like, put this out there that, like, I think that the voice acting was awesome. You know what I mean? If it wasn't for the voice acting and the great work on the characters, it really would have been much more lackluster than I felt that it was. So it's like, I do appreciate, like I liked Valentine, I liked Strong, all the characters had great voices, but some of them, like, it just felt like total wastes of a character. You know what I mean? Preston doesn't really help you out all that much. Like, he's okay, but, you know, MacReady, his storyline felt like such a waste of his character from Fallout 3. It's like, he should have become like the most awesome person ever, and instead he becomes like, you know, somebody who's, you know, hasn't learned any of the lessons of life and needs your help, and, you know, is kind of a pathetic character, or, you know, one that they want you to be sympathetic to. But it's like, man, he should have seen me back in Fallout 3 and been like, you know what, I had to leave the vault when I became a Mungo, but you know what, I had the vault dweller or whatever back there, and they left me with such a good impression or whatever, that, like, you know, that's how I wanted to live my life, and so I've dedicated my life to, you know, something like that, where you feel like, okay, if you've played Fallout 3, you're like, yeah, I did do that, didn't I? And you know what I mean? But instead they do some throwaway story where, you know what I mean, it's like, here, care about me because I fucked up taking care of my kid, and it's like, you idiot. So, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I felt once again let down by the direction that they decided to take the characters, and it's like, I understand some of the decisions, but it's like, what were they thinking when it's like, you're creating Piper and you're creating these characters where it's like, she's not even that interesting, and what is she adding to the story? Not a heck of a lot. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm supposed to care about her problems, and, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, you could have had a character that was like so much more badass that I'm like actually looking up to for help, you know what I mean? And like, who helps me out, and I just feel so grateful for their help that I'm like, man, you are the best, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, instead you decided to make somebody who is moderately annoying and totally unhelpful, you know what I mean? It's like, why what was so important about making that decision? And it's like, those are the kinds of things where I'm just kind of like, you know, what were they thinking when they made the game? And so, just more food for thought, you know what I mean? I'm going to sort of continue on with the review, but just, you know, stuff to think about. So the next thing that kind of disappointed me about the game is much more of an aesthetic complaint than anything else. It's like, the graphics in this game are obviously good. Like, the fact that I can see this building and see the tower in the distance and everything was, like, drawn in properly, and, like, I can see all these trees and stuff like that. It's like, the engine is obviously capable of doing some pretty amazing stuff. Like, the world looks pretty good, pretty realistic. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my god, I can't tell the difference between this and real life. But it's like, it obviously is proficient, you know? But my question is, why would you waste it? Or why would you do what you did with it when it's obviously capable of doing so much more? And what I mean by that is kind of like, I get the aesthetic that you're trying to create in this game, but, like, it's a pretty ugly game. Even though I love the color, love the fact that it's saturated with color. Like, it's probably the best looking Fallout game so far, in certain ways. Definitely more filled up world and more of a sense of realism. But it's kind of like, when I saw the town like this and was like, oh man, I get to make a settlement here, it's gonna be so freaking awesome, and I can't wait, and blah 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 blah, all the things I was excited to do. It's kind of like, you don't get to fix up the buildings. The buildings are always gonna look this crap. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, and even like all of the crafting things that you get to make, it's like, they're really not that good looking. You know what I mean? Like, I would be fine if this was like tier 1, you know, crafting supplies and stuff like that. But, like, this is like the majority of what you get to build with, and it's kind of like, I'm left disappointed that I can't, like, say, repair a house to look back the way it did before the war. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I've lost the ability to understand how to do basic home repair. You know what I mean? Even, like, actual, like, work on a house. You know what I mean? Renovation and stuff like that. Like, it's not like I've forgotten how to build an actual wall. You know? And if I didn't know how to do anything, it's not like there aren't books somewhere that could teach me, you know, here's how you know, fix a 4-cylinder engine, or, you know, a 2-cylinder, you know, or a generator, and here's how you fix this, that, and the other thing. And apparently I know how to do some stuff because I can make a generator and hook up electricity, but I can't fix houses. And I can't make good-looking, like, I'm an idiot carpenter. I don't know what the hell I'm doing as far as carpentry or insulation. Insulation is apparently, you know, beyond me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't make anything that looks nice, and it's kind of like, well, that's disappointing as well. So it's kind of like, I wish that there had been more tiers. I wish that you could have actually done more to repair stuff, and, like, same with, like, vehicles. Like, you're telling me that, like, we're dealing with atomic energy where I can pick up a fuel core, right? But then I can't go and find, like, a nice pristine Corvega somewhere around in somebody's garage or at the plant or something and put my fuel core into it and then go for a joyride. You know what I mean? It's like, surely the hardest part of the car is getting the atomic fuel for it. Everything else is just parts that we have the factory still. You know what I mean? To produce those parts. Like, it's just, there's a lot of decisions in this game where I'm just like, you guys did that because you didn't want to have to animate driving. You didn't want to have to make that part of the game. But it's like, you know. And so then moving on from that, we also have, like, the world doesn't really leave me with, like, a feeling of, oh, this is a nice, pretty looking place. It's kind of like, no, everything's dead. It's all dead, Jim. It's dead, and it's 5 years. I wish it was 5 years. It's dead, and it's 200 years after the bomb dropped. So unless all of the vegetation has decided that dead is the way to be, I guess it's fall. I guess it's supposed to be permanently October, right? Or November, because the game is taking place like right after Halloween, and it's 200 years later on at the same time of year. I don't know. It was Halloween before the bombs dropped, and there was still leaves on the trees and stuff like that. Like if there were no plants growing here, what are we breathing? How are we alive? You know what I mean? So then it's kind of like that, once again, so much of an opportunity to create something where it's like, yeah, this is an environment that's filled, like imagine, okay, the difference between Dorothy when she's in Kansas and then goes to Oz. It's kind of like we were in Oz and we went to Kansas. You know what I mean? It's shit. It's not interesting at all. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I would rather go back to be in Oz, where all the trees are nice, or just anything different. Like, come out and have, like, I don't know, purple leaves on the trees, or giant mushrooms growing, or, you know, what, completely different landscape from what we were expecting. You know what I mean? Because you have the room to do that with your storyline of, oh, you've been asleep for 200 years. A lot can happen in 200 years, especially with, I don't know, nuclear mutation. You could run with that, you know, and do something interesting. And it's like, similarly along those lines, it's kind of like you have this game, you have the space to create new features in it, and it's like, and they didn't create seasons? Like, this place would have been, like, can you imagine what this game would have felt like if it had launched and it had been like, you have yearly cycles in the game. So it's like each cycle lasts, you know, 3 months or something like that. And you're going to go through spring, summer, winter, and fall, and the environment is going to completely change during that time. The enemies are going to change. You know, like, just imagine with me the possibilities of what a game could look like if it had actually been done like that. And then look back again at this game. It's not that it's like it's its own thing. It's what they decided to create. But I once again, I'm just kind of like, really? Just dead stuff everywhere? Like, and then I'm supposed to be like, oh my gosh, it's dead stuff. Oh, let me go over the horizon. Oh wait, what am I going to find across over the horizon? Even more dead stuff. Let me go over the horizon again. Even more, like, it's just endless dead stuff and endless buildings that look like crap that you can't do anything to and can't repair. And it's kind of like, yeah, you know, aesthetically, there are some decisions about this game. I'll just very quickly complain about crafting not being a snap to grid system where you can't just snap pieces onto the foundations. You can't snap foundations underneath stuff that you've already built. There's a bunch of really weird rules about the crafting. I really hope somebody, you know, mods that and improves it. But it's like, crafting is also an annoying system in this game that they should have brought somebody in from another system, another game that's really heavily done crafting for quite some time, and been like, okay, what can we do to improve our crafting? And just, you know what I mean? Got some consultation or something going on there, but just my humble opinions. But then, okay, along with the weather system, another big disappointment in this game was the radiation storms and the fog. Not because they didn't look cool, or because you weren't expecting them to happen, or because, you know, they weren't something. But it's like, the first time a radiation storm happened, I was like, oh my god, what the hell's going on? I'm in so much crap. I need to find safety. I need to get a gas mask on. I need to, you know, get radiation clothing on. I need to take some Rad-X. I need to, you know, all of these various things. Let's take some health here, actually, while we're talking about it. But, and then all it was like the equivalent of like a summer storm, where you get, you know, bit of lightning for a second, and it passes, and then that's it. And I was like, man, like, once again, such a wasted opportunity where it's like, you know, a radiation storm, that should mean that, like, you know, legendary creatures come out all over the land, you know what I mean? Or that, like, anywhere where you see a lightning strike, you know, there's some sort of crazy creature that it's like, in, like, gives them, you know, brings them all back to life. Who the hell knows? You know what I mean? But yeah, here's some lightning. Ta-da! You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that wasn't very fun. That wasn't very exciting. I'm not, like, you know, worried about the next time that I come into a radiation storm. It's kind of like, meh. You know? Don't really care. Same with the fog. The fog, once again, like, totally changes the way that the environment feels. And you're like, oh my god, like, I can't see, like, you know, 50 feet in front of me. I could be surrounded by all kinds of enemies, and it's like, I kept thinking of the movie The Mist, where you had, like, not only weird, crazy tentacle creatures, but, like, giant flying insects, and also, like, huge mammoth, like, you know, town-sized creatures with giant legs stretching down from the sky that you would see walking past, and, you know, in the distance and stuff like that. And, like, the movie, it was, like, amazing. And it's like, man, if you had any of that in this, I would have been blown away. I would have been like, oh my god, this is, like, insane. And it never happened. And, like, another thing that I kept thinking about was, like, these trees that you keep putting up everywhere also left such an opportunity for you to turn them into an enemy. Like, make some kind of crazy, like, daddy long-leg spider, or some type of long-leg crab or something that kind of, like, hides itself like a stick insect, right? From far away, it looks like a tree, but when you get close to it, the trunk splits apart into all of its legs, and, you know what I mean? And it starts coming after you, and you could... I don't know if you guys have ever seen, like, a nest of daddy long-legs, and then you disturb it and they all go running in all directions, and it's like, holy crap, this thing is, you know, they have a mind of their own, you know, they're all running as one but separately, right? And it's like, I kept thinking about stuff like this as I'm playing the game, and it's like, man, it's never gonna happen, and nothing that interesting is gonna happen here, you know what I mean? It's like, at most, I'm going to run into enemies that I have already fought in previous games before, in the previous Fallout games. Like, there are so few new enemies in this game that I was actually taken aback by that, where it's like, you guys are seriously kidding me that it's like, oh my god, it's raiders and gunners again. Like, that's the same... Oh my god, like, raiders everywhere. It's another camp of raiders. Oh, look, here's a building that has Lorenzo in it with a magical artifact. But guess who's trying to get to him? Raiders. Gunners. You know what I mean? Oh, here's this other place that you need to go to, like a mine or a quarry. Oh, guess what's guarding that? Raiders and gunners and all that kind of stuff. And then you get super mutants, which is fine. You know, the Brotherhood, I don't mind, whatever. But it's kind of like... Really? Mole rats, death claws, Brahmin, like, it's exactly all the same stuff we've seen before, and it's like, and you're missing one of my favorite old school creatures, the centaurs, which is kind of like, really, you bring all this other stuff, you change the way that Mirelurk kings are, you add Mirelurk queens, those are cool, and what was the main new creature was that Mirelurk, like, hunter, the one that looks like a lobster. And it's like, well, at least you added one new thing. You know what I mean? That fits with, like, the Boston, Maine, you know what I mean, Maine lobster, you know what I mean, kind of deal that you have going on here. But it's like, really? You know, the rest of this stuff is exactly the same as what I was fighting in Washington and some in the Mojave. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like...
once again, I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity, and I felt like everywhere that I went, I was having the same types of experiences that I had already had 1,000 times before, and none of them all that memorable. So it's kind of like, yeah, I felt a little bit disappointed by the enemies in the game. And I'm sure I'm forgetting to talk about some other stuff that... Oh yeah, okay, here we go. A few more things just suddenly popped into my mind. But like, okay, the loot system in this game, not satisfying at all. At all. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you can get awesome stuff off of legendary creatures. Maybe. It's an RNG system, you know? Maybe you'll get the piece that you're looking for. Maybe you'll get it, 50 levels from now. Maybe. You know what I mean? It's like, so that was the only way that you could get cool loot. Or you could get cool loot by buying it at stores with in-game currency. But it was never like, oh, hey, go in and find this crazy research facility, and oh, they're researching some type of crazy weapon, and oh, you actually get to put your hands on that crazy weapon. Or like in the previous games, felt satisfying that like you knew that when you got to the end of an area, or like that somewhere in this zone was some cool weapon or something for you to pick up, like a silenced assault rifle or a silenced sniper rifle. You had the the orbital strike thing, and the Mojave. Like there's everywhere you went. Like the first weapon I found in Fallout 3, first special named weapon that I found was a Gatling laser, and it's like, or laser Gatling gun, and it's like, that's freaking awesome. Like, if I could like walk out of the vault here and just like happen to come across the first spot where it's like, oh, let's go and check out here, and it's like, and you actually come across something that's like right there, bang, first thing off the game, and you've already got this awesome weapon. It's like, that makes you feel like, yeah, I want to go and explore the rest of this stuff. I want to find all the rest of them. And this game, it's kind of like the joy of that is gone, and it's replaced with random generated number loot. And it's very unsatisfying feeling for me, being a long-time Fallout player, to be like, yeah, I don't really want to find weapons that way. And even if you had to do weapons that way, like, whatever happened to like the bounties and the caves that like the Mojave did a great job of having, like, okay, here's the cave with the death claws in it, here's the cave with the mole rats, here's the cave with the geckos, and like, or the coyotes, or the night stalkers, or whatever it was, and you'd have to go out and collect those for the lady that worked in, what was it? It was like the arena. She wanted the creatures' eggs so that she could breed them to fight in the arena or whatever. And it was like, those were actually cool missions, and you actually found cool stuff when you went out to do each of them. So it's like, there's stuff that's actually missing from this game that I'm just kind of like blown away by the fact that it's like, yeah, we decided to take that out and replace it with more raiders. More raiders, because that's what you wanted to fight everywhere in this game. More raiders. And it's like, I felt let down by that. And then also, perks. The perk system is mediocre. It gets the job done, but it's not very fun, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Because in the previous games, unlike this one, where I have to buy perks to get down to the ability to locksmith, or I have to buy perks to get down to the ability to hack, right? In the previous games, you didn't have to buy perks like that. Like, you weren't spending a skill point that you had earned from leveling up in order to be able to unlock, oh, I want to unlock advanced hacking or advanced lockpicking. Like, the way that it worked was that the more that you did it, the more you would be able to level up, and the more you leveled up, you would spend points. So like my favorite way is actually the way Skyrim does it, where it's like the more you do it, the more it levels up, and so the better you are at it, the better stuff you can open, right? I could open a master lockpick at the beginning of the game if I was good enough. You know what I mean? Whereas here, nope, you're screwed. You're going to have to wait until you're like level, 40 or something before you can open master level locks. And it's the same with like the storyline of the game. It's like you can't just walk out at level 1, walk down the street, go to where you know where you need to go, and like finish the game. It's like, no, you actually have to put many, many hours into the game before it's going to get to a state where you can complete it. And that's like completely different from the way the previous games work. And it's one more thing where I'm kind of like taking out that feature in the name of like, oh, we'll simplify it for the noobs. It's like, okay, well, you've simplified me out of liking the game as a hardcore player. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of aspects that feel like that in this game as well, where it feels like it was streamlined, and it feels like it was turned into a theme park almost, where it's like each of the little areas is set up as a spot that you can go back to over and over and over again and have the same experience and get the same stuff out of doing it. And it's like, that's cool and everything, but I don't feel like there was a compelling reason to do any of it behind it, and I don't feel like that there was anything compelling that you find along the way that's like making you want to go and do more. It's like even the current settlements that they have set up, you have Diamond City, which once again I'm gonna have to like call out Bethesda on being like, one square block is not a city. It might not even count as a town. If you have less than 20 people that occupy or that live there, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't think that counts as a city. When you said that there was going to be cities in this game, I was expecting to walk around downtown Boston as if I was in a Blade Runner movie, right? Where it's like you have multi-levels of like people walking around on walkways and like markets and shit going on, and like the police roaming around keeping order, people getting into trouble and all kinds of stuff. And it's like none of that. There's none of that in this game. And like all of the settlements that you go to are they're super lackluster. There's nothing really going on at any of them. The most interesting settlement I can think of is the one with the Atom Cats. That was cool. That had some flavor. That was interesting. Did they do anything with it? No. Did it go anywhere? No. So it's like, oh, that's great, And then like the rest of the settlements, or the rest of I'll just talk briefly here about like, it's not like the super mutants here are any different from the super mutants in the Capital Wasteland. It's like I would have made them like, this is a particular, sect of the super mutants who have a different feeling about X, Y, or Z. They really like energy weapons, and I would have all their bases have like neon lights and crap going around them. Something to make things different. You know what I mean? Something like if all the super mutants in this game had like neon lights on their armor and stuff like that, it would look crazy cool. And I'd be like, wow, that was really inventive. That was something I wasn't expecting to see. You know what I mean? Same with all of the other enemy factions. You know what I mean? It's like the Gunners. They like to use guns. It's like that's the level of imagination that you guys went with there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that's not even interesting. That's like, what's the difference between a gunner and a raider? The armor they wear. Raiders wear raider armor, gunners wear gunner armor. That's it. That's the only difference. But apparently those are two different factions. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like there's a lot of aspects of this game that I look at and I'm just like, even like if they had done a story that was more based on the history of Boston, just looking at this statue here, you know what I mean, where like maybe you have to fight through modern day reimaginings of what the situation was in the past. You have to fight through this battle here, or fight, you know, do the one if by land, two if by sea, you know what I mean, and like you be the new part and take the new part in that or something. And it's like, it just felt like so many wasted opportunities to do something cool with the game, and then it just isn't there. And I don't understand why they decided to go in the direction that they did. And while I think that they have definitely created something for themselves here, at the same time, I just don't think that it's all that interesting. That's just my own humble personal opinion, but you know what I mean? It's like I really was hoping that we would see something better out of this. So I think that's all I really have, you know, for now. Like, doing the survival mode made me really realize just how much I felt like that, because it was like I got to a point where it was like, okay, now what do I do? And there was nothing that I could put my finger on that I actually felt like doing. It was like, you know, I'm good. I don't need to keep going. I don't need to have this experience, you know? I want to have an experience that's better than this, you know what I mean? So maybe that'll come with mods and modding. I'm really hoping that'll add a new level to the game. I'm looking at the add-on content, but right now it's $69.99 here in Canada, and it's kind of like I can't justify spending that on DLC for a game. It's like that's a whole new game for me, and while I'm sure I would get some value out of that, it's like there are other actual games out there that are going to do more of the things that I'm looking for in a game, and it's kind of like, yeah, I would rather just save it and spend it on a new experience because I already had this one, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna wait. We'll see what, you know, modding brings to the game. If I can mod this game to change it into something that's more like what I've been describing, then that's great, and you know, maybe I'll come back and take a look at it if it manages to do that. But until such a time, you know what I mean, it's like there are many, okay, and let me just, before I finish out, there are many other aspects about this game that I felt unsatisfying or just not carefully thought out or well thought out, you know what I mean? And I'm not trying to blame anybody for that, I'm trying to point it out so that hopefully, maybe someday somebody at Bethesda will watch this video and take some of this constructive criticism for what it is, which is that I want to see more from the game. I want to see the game become better. Right now, the position that I'm in, it's kind of like if you said, oh man, the next Fallout game is coming out next year. I don't know if I would be all that interested in playing it if it was more of this. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to see a lot more as far as like what they're doing to sort of make the experience better. It's like while I appreciate writing a story that, you know, where I'm going to go on in somebody else's adventure, really what I'm looking for a game is to go on my own adventure. You know what I mean? And I feel like this game misses that target more than probably any of the other previous games. I feel like I had more freedom to be myself or be somebody interesting in Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Skyrim than I ever really did here. So, just some final parting thoughts, guys. But if you've made it to the end of this video, I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who came to join me in chat and check out my little rant slash review of Fallout 4, and I hope there's some stuff in here that, you know, makes you guys think about what you like and dislike about the game, and, like, put it in the comments, guys. Like, I know I could be completely, you know, off base with what most people like about this game or dislike about this game, but it's like, what are the things that you ran into that you were like, you know, I didn't really like this aspect, or I thought this could have done better? Because I am genuinely interested to know, like, what you guys think, because there's a lot of people out there that seem to like this game, or there's a lot of people out there that are playing it. So it's like, I'm curious as to know, like, what your guys' thoughts are, but those are just my humble opinions put together for you in one video. So thank you for joining me, guys. It's a bit of a shorter episode today, but I just wanted to get all this stuff out. And if there's anything super majorly important that I've forgotten, which I don't think that there will be, but I think I've made my point pretty much clear. But if there's anything else that I forget, I will put them in the comments myself as well. So a big thank you to everybody, and I will see you guys again next time for more epic adventures here on Dork Ninja Gaming. Woot!